Welcome to Master B2B Friday 15. My name is Brian Beck. I'm here with my partner in crime here at Master B2B, our Thought Leadership Series, Andy Orr. Welcome, Andy. It's Friday, almost weekend time, almost college football time. Exciting days and times. Welcome.
Yeah, Rutgers plays today. Did you know that?
Did I know that? Of course I know that.
Well, it's not normal they play on a Friday, or even if it was on Friday. It's going to be a featured game tonight. Featured loss, probably, but it's going to be a hell of a good thing to watch.
Yeah, we're only playing the runner-up for the national championship last year.
Who beat Northwestern last week? We have a common opponent now, so we can both be beaten by the same team.
Okay. We'll see, my friend. We will see. We'll revisit
this
next week.
You're playing at home, aren't you?
We are playing Washington at home. Yes.
Okay, so we played them on the road. So instantly that changes the dynamic. So if you win, it's not fair.
Okay, fine. Whatever. We beat you last year, man. We'll get Northwestern back on our slate soon. Anyhow, folks, we got some exciting stuff to talk about this week. And we'll start with just a little bit of breaking news. And the breaking news is close to home.
Brian.
Music.
You live in LA, and you actually got to stay in LA for a Master B2B event. Tell us about it.
Yeah, it was awesome. So we had a roundtable this week, Tuesday. Was a group of over 20 e-commerce leaders from the Los Angeles area, from across all different kinds of companies. We had, what's interesting about LA, Andy, is, you get companies that have, we have a couple apparel companies that were there, right? But they sell B2B just as much as an industrial products company does, right? Selling to a distributor. They're selling to retailers, they're selling to, boutique stores and wholesale and private label, and they're just as B2B as anybody else. So it was fascinating because we had some of those traditional, industrial type companies, and then we had, folks from, from apparel companies, all kinds of others in the room. And it was really just a fantastic discussion all around how to, use B2B or modern tools to leverage, to create differentiated B2B experiences, online experiences. And, we talked about all sorts of things. AI, of course, came up, but a lot of talk about, the organization. My favorite question is who should own the digital experience, ultimately make decisions about it. We had a big debate about that. And, should it be in the IT side? Should it be a chief digital officer? Should it be a VP of e-com? Should it be the CEO? Of course, the question, a lot of folks said it should be the customer. Well, the customer makes decisions, but, still they're not sitting in your organization. So it was a great talk, and I appreciated everyone that was there. So thank you again for joining us. And we're doing these all over the country. In fact, next week, I'm in Atlanta to do one of these. We have a great group coming together for that one. So we still have one seat left. If anyone wants to join us, you can go to our website and see, go to events and sign up there. Anyhow, Andy, great time.
Tuesday, October 1st, Atlanta, is that right?
That's correct. Okay. Yeah, it's Tuesday, October 1st is the Atlanta Executive Roundtable, followed by dinner. And of course, in LA, Andy, we had amazing views. We're looking over the Hollywood sign, and you can see all downtown LA. It was fascinating. It was fabulous. So anyhow, yeah, fun stuff. But we got to get to our topic today because it's a meaty one, right? We're going to talk about our return to office mandates. Good for productivity. This is a huge question. So, Andy, I was sitting in Seattle last week, for their Accelerate conference. And it was in mid-September. And when this announcement came out that Amazon CEO called for everyone back to the office full-time, 5 days a week, starting in January 2025. So if you thought your 2 days a week at home were safe, well, hey, think again. The free-for-all is coming to an end. And so, but this is a hot topic. And man, did we hear it? Did I hear it sitting there, Andy? Well, from folks that are at Amazon. They're, this is causing a lot of chatter. Amazon has 1.5 million employees. This is a very significant change for Amazon. And, why are companies doing this? Well, you found this data, and you want to speak to this? This is just, according to business leaders, it's about what?
It's about productivity, but this is not just Amazon. It's the chatter. The chattering class extends to basically all of tech. And because tech has started driving a lot of the markets and the way other companies think about themselves, even if they aren't tech companies, this one it's the butterfly effect. This one flap of the wings at Amazon has spread through all of tech and all of non-tech. And so it's rekindled this, perennial debate about working from home versus working in the office. You and I have debated this for a couple of years through the pandemic. Right. And here we are again, but it's a classic case of the employers believe that employees are more productive in the office, and employees, by and large, believe the exact opposite. And so the story, once again, is who's going to win the argument. And it seems to be the same deal every time, whoever has the upper hand, which we'll get to in a moment. But this is the kind of data that the employers cite, which is, this is a study done by Resume Builder. Business executives, business leaders, by a factor of almost like 3 to 1, they believe that being in the office improves employee productivity. Now, this is, I don't know how scientific this was, but this is generally the way they think. And of course, this is the quantitative side. On the qualitative side, Andy Jassy, the CEO of Amazon, actually makes the argument himself too. And you found this quote.
Yeah, Andy said in his letter to employees, and I was sitting there with employees when they were reading it. It was crazy. It is easier, Andy said, it is easier for our teammates to learn, model, practice, and strengthen our culture. Collaborating, brainstorming, and inventing are simpler and more effective. Teaching and learning from one another are more seamless, and teams tend to be better connected to one another when employees are together 5 days a week. So, I mean, it's clear that management believes, and look, at the end of the day, Andy, I mean, remember, don't forget, folks, that 4 years ago in 2020, we were sitting here going, how the hell are we all going to be productive working from home? Right? Do you remember those discussions 4 years ago? And now we've gotten so used to the opposite. Companies are saying, hey, we want to recapture some of that energy and magic. And Andy Jassy's letter talked a lot about, the magic that Amazon is, in terms of working together and their culture, and gotten them to where they are and things of that nature. So the management is trying to recapture some of that. But you're
what do they need to recapture? This is the part that mystifies me. I didn't look, but I wish I had. If you look at the market caps of these companies today versus before the pandemic, they're all doing, let's say, just fine. So I read something the other day that Apple, and by the way, it's also not just a tech thing. Here's a stat that will throw you. Apple's current market cap, which I think is a little over 3 trillion. Apple, as one company, is worth more than the top 10 largest public companies in all of Europe combined.
Wow. That's crazy.
One company is worth 10. And one of those companies, by the way, is SAP, is one of the largest publicly traded companies in Europe. So Apple is doing just fine. Amazon's doing just fine, which does cause us to wonder, what's the real intention here? But let's go through the Kabuki theater and let's throw out some more of these stats that the executives seem to cite all the time. Like, there's another one you found, which was kind of interesting.
This was CEOs. Well, actually, Carrie found this for us. Carrie Hogan, thank you, Carrie, on our team. CEOs expect full return to office in the next 3 years. Look at this: 79% in office. Right. So CEOs envision working environments for corporate employees to shift, away from hybrid and certainly away from fully remote. Only 4% expect fully remote. Now, I mean, there have to be business reasons for this, Andy. I mean, there is a real
this circular argument. I love this. People are going to return to office because people are returning to office. That's the reason they're going to return to the office.
All right, fine. But I mean, what do the actual statistics show? Well, we found this funny cartoon for those of you who can see this. I'll read it for those who aren't. This is a manager talking to a bunch of people on Zoom saying, everyone should come back to the office now. And all these people are saying from Zoom, they say, why? Productivity hasn't dipped. We're saving commute time. Why do you want us to come back to the office? And the manager says, well, so that I can better monitor you. So, I think, we have to look at the actual productivity stats to start getting some insights into this. And, what's fascinating here is that when we look and ask, or when organizations like in this case, a research what was it, WFHR or WFH research found that employees want to work from home about a half a day a week more than firms are offering. So you've got this base of employees. It feels like they don't even have enough work from home today, right?
Well, and for those who can't see this on the screen, this goes up until April 2023. And it says firm plans average offering like 2.25 days a week working from home. Employees want closer to 2.75 days per week. But the dotted line here was still going up or about the same. What we've seen recently is this: if you'd extend this out to the present, it would fall. So the gap is widening. What is not happening is employees aren't saying, sure, I would love to come back into the office and work some more. Employers, on the other hand, for a lot of reasons, some of which I guess are legit, about training and just getting team culture. I agree with that. But 5 days a week. So basically Amazon says, we want to forget about the pandemic, forget about digital technologies, forget about communication technologies like Zoom, Teams, etc. We just want to ignore all of that and have you come back and work the same way you did before the pandemic. Now, there's no evidence that that's required or necessary, or actually 5 days a week is more productive than 2 or 3. So that's just made up out of thin air. And it's also the case that this stuff is hurting. This return to office, mandate stuff is hurting very specific types of employees, which is the stats on the next screen. Yeah. We found the evidence now. We went through the pandemic. There have been studies that have been done. There's very clear evidence that the remote and hybrid work thing has reshaped the labor market. It's enabled workers to live in lower cost areas, which, by the way, broadens the talent pool. I remember when I lived in Silicon Valley, it was really hard to get anybody to move to Silicon Valley, not because it's not a beautiful place and lots of opportunity, but nobody can afford to live there.
Right.
So when the pandemic came along, suddenly Google could hire people in Boise, Idaho, who could do the same work as somebody in Sunnyvale, California, except in Boise, you could afford to own a house.
Not anymore.
What are you going to do? What are you going to do about those folks who are now living in these places? A lot of them are like, well, screw it. I love Boise now, so I'm going to leave. This is a big one. It brought more women into the workforce. Women now hold, what is this? We saw a record 79 million jobs. It's 78% of women of working age are employed. It's up from 75% from 5 years ago. Why? Because women, especially moms, working moms, can work from home and also take care of a lot of the traditional duties that have been assigned to them, for better or worse. That's another discussion for another day, about taking care of children. So you can have those two lives. You can't have those two lives when you go to an office, especially if there's not a great reason for that. Another one is increased opportunities for workers with disabilities. Hey, if you're sadly disabled, it's a lot harder to get into the office. Especially if you're taking public transportation, it's really hard to get on a train, get off a train, go up and down stairs, versus rolling into your office, turning on Zoom and doing your work ostensibly just as easily as you could in the office. And by the way, it's raised satisfaction and performance ratings without the relationship costs of having to travel, et cetera. So there's a lot of evidence that this has reshaped the labor market. And like I said at the beginning, these companies seem to be doing just fine with, profitability and market cap, et cetera.
So what we're talking about here, what you just shared, Andy, are all statistics that benefit the employee. In other words, opening up more opportunities. You could argue that opening up broader labor pool helps companies for sure. However, raise satisfaction, better performance ratings, bringing more people into the workforce. But what does it do to, productivity when companies say, hey, you've got to go back to the office? And this is some interesting and fascinating stuff. Number one, employee attrition, right? So we have a number of sources we found here that talk about, that these mandates can actually impact retention or attrition, like people leaving. 42% of companies with return to office mandates have experienced higher turnover than they expected. That was a study by Unispace. 63% of C-suite leaders surveyed said that their return to office policies have led to a disproportionate number of women leaving their jobs. Upwork found that 57% of those leaders said that the loss of women workers has negatively impacted company productivity. So I think you're onto something there. People, so we've got, this is all this return to office stuff, though. Remember, Andy, is still relatively new. It's to some degree when I'm sitting there with Amazon and, the guy that moved to Spokane, which is 3.5 hours from Amazon's headquarters in Seattle, says, I got to leave because I can't, or I have to do something because I can't be commuting every day. My life is now there. I can handle, 3 days a week. I can't do 5. Somebody like that, he's going to, this is near-term stuff. We're going to go through some adjustments, trying to return to where we were in 2019. So remember too, that some of these are immediate reactions to, near-term reactions. So I think part of this needs to play out, right?
Yeah, but there's one real bitter irony about this. I touched on it earlier, is the reason they want people to come back in the office is arguably productivity, right? But the return to office mandates very clearly have hurt one particular demographic, which I said earlier is working mothers, who,
Right.
believe it or not, in the research are disproportionate, or they are the most productive of all these different groups. It's working mothers. And so what's happening is, because these return to office mandates are driving working mothers away because they want to keep their work from home relationship, companies that want to increase productivity by ordering people to come back in the office are driving working mothers away, which is causing them to leave, which is reducing the productivity of the organization. So the original intent here was to make the company more productive, but return to office mandates have driven away the most productive segment of their employees, which has actually had the reverse effect of reducing productivity.
Okay. Yeah, I got you. Okay. So, what I think we need to do is balance. There's going to be an adjustment period here if more companies push this. And I think we're going to need to, we'll see some normalization in this data. But it's not just about those, it's not just about attrition. It's also about executive, employee attrition. It's also about executive attrition. Gartner found that 1 in 3 executives who were presented with a return to office obligation reported they would leave their current employer for that reason. These are executives, right? So executives want the flexibility as well, not just employees. And when we look at, moving beyond, retention into recruitment, we do see that it's harder. And I see this in my, my own businesses, Andy. We see it at Master B2B too. Companies that require people to be in the office, it's harder to find people because they have to physically, you're limiting the number of people in your universe for recruiting. And there's also studies that have been done. Farmers Group did a study that said, return to office mandates and policy reversals are often presented without a clear evidence of lack of productivity. Now we looked, because we really did look to try to find evidence of increased productivity. And when you talk about a company like Amazon, they're a data-based company. They have legions, I'm sure, of management experts helping them make these decisions. So, what's fascinating is, though, I haven't found any actual data saying it is more productive when people are in the office. Have you?
Well, not only did you not, but apparently Andy Jassy didn't, because remember from the statement, I listened carefully to what you read there. It was all qualitative, anecdotal. There was no stat. How does a company so steeped and deep in data not say, according to our research, 5-day-a-week employees are 16, 20, 87% more productive than those who aren't in the office? Now, I don't mean to say there aren't studies that have been done. I'm sure there have been that have shown that, more time you spend in the office, the more productive you are. But the 5-day-a-week one, so really it's like 0 versus 5 days. You can, there's probably data that says 0 days in the office is not as productive as some days in the office. But going from 2 to 5, I haven't seen anything that says going from 2 or 3 to 5 makes an organization more productive. And like I said, apparently Andy Jassy doesn't have any either, because if he had, he would have shared it, I think.
Well, maybe. I don't know. But yes. Well, but I think what's really happening here, Andy, is the balance of power has shifted and the economy is in a different place. And it's easier to manage people when they're in the office, number one. So it's easier it just is. Let's be honest. Management of people and oversight, like that cartoon showed, is easier so this is a management decision. And where's the power? Well, these days, you found this interesting statistic. Tech employment has cooled off, right? So you look at these big companies and the balance of power. We said this in 2023 in our predictions a year and a half ago, Andy, that the balance of power was shifting back to the employer from the employee. And I think we're seeing this play out. Just look at these layoff numbers.
Yeah, it's the snake and the mongoose here. And whoever has the upper hand is going to win. And right now, because of a lot of reasons, the tech economy is cooled. I think a lot has to do with Chat GPT, if we're being honest. This is another discussion for another day, but these numbers are pretty stark. Just in 2024 alone, according to layoffs.fyi, which, by the way, is a site where they keep track of all the companies who lay people off. It's fascinating. According to them, 124,000 tech employees have been laid off in 2024, adding to 428,000 who lost their jobs in 2022 and 2023. So there's been kind of a quiet revolution that's taking place here of a lot of tech employees, a lot of software developers. A great article in the Wall Street Journal recently about the number of jobs that have been on sites like Indeed have dropped precipitously for software developers. I mean, 2-3 years ago, these guys were getting paid ridiculous sums of money because there was such demand for them. And now, post-pandemic, and with ChatGPT, which is automated coding, you've seen this fall off a cliff. And history is going to write this was a time when this changed dramatically. But again, to your point, when people are getting laid off, it's a buyer's market for labor. And so you got to get in line. And so if Amazon says you got to be there 5 days a week, for whatever reason they quote unquote make up or not, if you want a job at Amazon, you got to be there. One other quick point about Amazon that's worth mentioning. They're the second largest private employer in the United States of America now. That's amazing because they have all these warehouse workers. Number one is Walmart. They have a lot of people who can't work from home. And so we know from the conversations we've had with B2B executives, this is a cultural problem because you can't on the one hand tell all the people in the warehouse, you got to go to work and I'm going to go sit at home, or I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to work from Tahiti. That doesn't create the right kind of environment. And so Amazon has millions of employees who are working in warehouses. And maybe they're thinking too, hey, it's not a great look if all of our executives in Seattle are working from home in the beach while people are working really hard in the warehouses. So that could be a dimension of this discussion. But I still think that Amazon's, constructing concepts here.
Maybe. I think too, but I do
go from
think
2 to 5.
Well, here's an underlying kind of theory, and we asked our LinkedIn audience about this, right? So, Amazon, as you know, and many tech companies these days are focused on profitability, right? More than anything else. And they have also a lot of unused office space, right? So you've got that element. So was this really, we asked our LinkedIn audience, is Amazon's 5-day return to office mandate primarily about improving productivity or a clever way to do a reduction in force? And guess what? 67%, we had hundreds of votes on this, by the way. 67% said mostly a reduction in force. 18% said, 16% said mostly about productivity. So a very small percentage. And then 18% said, probably maybe a little bit about both, right? So
I think this was overwhelming. Overwhelming. People are seeing through this one. I think we had some comments to this effect, like, yeah, it's a riff. And it actually is a clever riff because if Amazon says, hey, you got to come to the office 5 days a week, and these groups of segments say, no, I've already moved. I want to work from home. I'm working mom, whatever. Then then they'll go find another job, and Amazon saves billions of dollars in severance. I mean, it's a very cynical way of looking at it. It calls into question whether they're really serious about this. So are they putting this out there because they really believe in it, or because it's just a clever way to reduce? Remember, the last slide said hundreds of thousands of tech workers have been laid off. You don't think Amazon's thinking that? Oh, hey, this is a great way to lay people off by having themselves lay themselves off.
So I'll give you one. I found this article from this study that was done last week by this company called Blind, which is an online forum of verified tech workers. So they go and they verify, hey, these people have, Amazon.com names, email addresses. 2,500 Amazon employees were polled, so a good sample set. And what they found is that only 9% of those surveyed said they were happy with the back to your desk's order, and 73% are now considering moving jobs because of the edict, if they could find them. So there you go. There's your riff, I guess. There's folks, but again,
and let's be
that's
honest.
a reaction.
Yeah, let's be honest here. If there were increases in productivity and people were interested in being more productive so they could be better at their jobs, wouldn't there be like a higher percentage of these respondents who would say, yeah, I don't love going back in the office, but I am better when I'm there. And so, yeah, I can see the argument. We're not even seeing that. There are people who literally believe that going to the office makes them less productive. Because they have more time in the commute, they get there and they spend more time in meetings. How many times have we heard this story? I've heard it dozens of times where people say, yeah, I went back to the office and you know what I did? I said hello to a few people. I went into my office and I spent the entire day on Zoom talking to my team located all around the world, because return to office mandate doesn't affect anybody in distributed teams. And don't we live in a global economy where most people's teams are all over the place? So what am I actually going to the office for? To sit there and go on Zoom all day long? Why can't I just do that from home and save the commute time?
There's going to be a lot of resentment, unfortunately. Folks having to commute and then sit there all day on Teams or Chime in the case of Amazon. So but yeah, I mean, we'll see what happens with this, Andy. It's going to be interesting. But we're way past our Friday 15, folks. So I want to do a couple quick announcements before we wrap up for the day. We've got our series of additional roundtables we're doing in key markets around the country in the next 6 weeks or so. We're going to be Atlanta next week, Dallas, Milwaukee, Cleveland, Minneapolis, and Denver. These are fantastic get-togethers of 20 to 25 executives across B2B. Come and join us. It's no cost to participants. Just go to our practitioners. Just go to our website, Master B2B, click on events, and you'll be able to sign up and apply to join us at those events coming up soon in your market. And of course, we always have our forum, which more and more members are joining all the time. We got hundreds and hundreds of members in there now, Andy, and they're sharing information. This is a practitioner-only online community. We don't have any solution providers or vendors in there. This is just practitioners talking to practitioners. Go to masterb2b.com and look at the forum, and you can apply to join us. So, Andy, I want to remind everyone finally that this is all available via podcast on your favorite podcast service. Today was a nice long one. So try everybody's patience with our bantering about back to the office, but we do this every week, and it's also available on your podcast service. So check us out there on Google, Spotify, Apple, or on our website. Andy, any final words before we drop our Friday 30 here?
Yeah, I'm actually going to watch the Rutgers game tonight.
Are you?
So, okay. Yeah, I'm not telling you I'm rooting for, but I'll watch for Rutgers.
Come on, you got to root for Rutgers. We're going to win. Come on, home game. We're the underdog. It's great. Good stuff. All right, everyone. Thanks for watching, Andy. Thanks, everyone, for listening in. We'll catch you next week on the next Friday 15.